First, thanks for making the time. I appreciate you making the time for this session. My name is Jeff Doherty. I am with Web of Science Group, part of Clarivate Analytics. I've been with that organization back to its ISI days. I would say I've got about 27 years in with ISI through Clarivate today. Brief stint, not so brief, at Digital Science, about 4 years. And what we want to talk about today, I'll touch a little bit on Web of Science content itself. I don't ever talk about Web of Science without at least laying a little bit of a foundation for just how it is, what it is, how the content gets into Web of Science. And I'll also talk, of course, about the main topic, open access in Web of Science, the way we detail it, and what you can do with that detail to help get a handle on what we call your open access footprint as an institution, where you're publishing and what OA statuses you're publishing. I'll also briefly go into InCites benchmarking and analytics and explain what that is and what things can be done in it. We like to talk about our data as being high quality. I'll get into that detail, but better data, better discovery, better decisions, better outcomes is kind of our mantra around data. And in this case, data interchangeable with content, I would say, when we're laying the foundation for what Web of Science is. And, many are not entirely familiar with how Web of Science is built. We index many journals, over 21,000 journals in what we call our core collection. But those journals, every single one of them, have been evaluated. They've passed through a very detailed selection, evaluation process, and ongoing curation is part of that. This is how Web of Science is built. And this is how it was built from day one. You'll see some screenshots here of our founder, Gene Garfield. Many of you hopefully know who he is. Really the individual who brought citation indexing to more widespread exposure, created the Science Citation Index and everything that we've done since then. Important notes on what we do and how we do it. We have a full-time editorial staff of individuals. It's what they do all day, every day, is evaluate journals and curate a collection of journals in Web of Science. Again, we've been doing it from day one. It's what separates us, I think, from everyone else, is the way the database has been built. So hugely important here. I'm going to show this just because we've committed ourselves to more transparency around that. And for many years, we've always gotten questions about how we evaluate journals, but more and more, we've been trying to make this more transparent. We have a more detailed slide than this, but I just wanted to put this up for reference, and I know this session is being recorded. This is a very organized kind of process that a journal goes through. 3 stages of editorial evaluation, an impact evaluation. Each stage gets more granular until we reach a decision on just where this journal should be covered. And that's the way we do it. We evaluate the journal and then decide where it is best placed in Web of Science, or which index in Web of Science. So we're never evaluating a journal for a file or an index. We evaluate a journal and based on our conclusions, determine where it's best covered. So just wanted to touch on that very important aspect of what we do. And in recent years, we established a relationship with what is now known as Our Research, but what was formerly known as Impactstory. That organization recently changed names within the last year, and essentially provided funding or payment to them to develop or broaden out their knowledge base of article-level open access content. And along with that, it's not just yes or no open access, but detail around the exact status of that article, whether it's DOAJ gold, hybrid gold, which we call other gold, green, etc., etc. And the motivation behind this was really our user base, who, given the importance of open access and how hot the topic was, we felt that was something we wanted to embrace. We're publisher neutral, we're publisher independent. Our approach to Web of Science is trying to provide the best content and the best presentation for our users, and including this level of detail around open access was very important to us and for our users. What we do and what we get from our research is this article level definition or status, so to speak. And you'll see DOAJ Gold, where the article comes from a DOAJ Gold, where all of the articles published in the journal. It's a gold journal, DOAJ Gold journal. All articles in the journal open access. Other gold, typically hybrid, published in subscribed or subscription-based journals, but through an APC model, where a fee is paid to make that article open access. And so other gold in Web of Science pretty much equates to a hybrid type article. Bronze, and this is in our research definition, bronze is material that is made freely available by the publisher, but not necessarily or technically officially OA licensed. But it is freely available, and there's a lot of bronze content out there. Bronze content status can change. We get a weekly feed from our research, and so Web of Science content is updated weekly with regard to the OA status of articles. Green. So green is that material that is placed within institutional repositories or a subject-based repository. It's open content, can exist in two statuses: articles that have already been published or material that has been accepted. And we're very, again, getting back to content and the importance of quality content. We want to ensure that something has gone through the peer review process before we index it. And all of the journals that we index have a peer review model. And so we won't, accept anything in Web of Science or look at material that may be non-peer reviewed. So the two statuses apply. It's either accepted or published. Articles can exist in more than one category. It's pretty common that something is published in a gold status and then at a later time is placed on an institutional repository. So that can happen as well, and you should be aware of that when you think about ways to look at things in Web of Science. How it looks in the product itself, in Web of Science. For any search, and I'll go live into Web of Science as well and just show you some things. The objective really, I think, at least what I want to get across, is how you can do things in Web of Science to put together different sets of data that reveal different things about open access content. And so I wanted to do that live, and I'll get into different options that you have. But for any search in Web of Science, there is an OA filter. So search, in this case I did climate change and water resources, filter on open access, which would reveal those articles that are solely open access or available at least in open access. Let me close that, sorry about that. But we also provide the detail as a filter. Simply scroll down to the left column and you reveal the status of various groupings of articles: green accepted, published, bronze, other gold, DOAJ gold. I point this out in a slide because not everyone is aware that this exists. Typically everyone will see this open access, this general open access filter here, but unless you've really peeked under the covers of Web of Science, you may not know that we're doing this. And users typically aren't concerned, at least the end users typically aren't concerned with the status of an article. They just want to get to the article. But librarians, on the other hand, may be very interested in what we're presenting here and what it can teach you and tell you. So My favorite feature in Web of Science is analyze results, because in minutes you can learn an awful lot about that body of information that you've just retrieved. And so it's a simple sequence of things. Search, filter, analyze results. In this case, I looked at University of Nevada, Reno, simple search on everything they've published, filtered on other gold, hybrid articles, and analyzed. And in a minute, was able to reveal for that institution where they're publishing in a hybrid type of, where they're paying fees. And in this particular analysis, I just looked at disciplines. You can also look at journals. You know, which journals are you presenting or supporting in terms of fees around hybrid type articles, APCs. So just a slide again for reference. And again, looking at hybrid gold, again, search, filter on other gold, analyze. Search, filter, analyze. But what you can also do is something known as a citation report in Web of Science. And so I can search on, I won't reveal the university name here, I don't think that's fair, but I did a search on, and I'll give a little more detail about the way to do that search properly when we go live. But search on the university, pull in all of their publications. I filtered on the neurosciences category, and we use about 250 different categorizations in Web of Science, and these are fundamentally journal-based types of categorizations. So search on an institution, pull in everything published in neurosciences by that institution, limited the date range. I wanted to be fair here with the view of this body of content. So discipline, date range, and looked at all open access material in neurosciences, and just through a simple Boolean operation, not eliminated OA, and could look at material that's not available openly. A citation report produces these kinds of metrics. Total publications, and gives you a little trend graph that you can expand. It provides an H-index, which typically is used when looking at people, but you can generate an H-index for really any set of results in Web of Science. What I was most interested in here was average citations per item. We have other metrics too, total sum of time cited. Without citations, I can see which citing articles are actually citing this body of over 2,000 publications. I wasn't concerned so much with these metrics. It was average citations per item. University X, open access, 2010 to present, average cites per item, 29.26. Non-OA material, same time period, same discipline, 6.48 average cites per item. I don't want to go too far in drawing conclusions. You know, there's been a lot written about what open access can do for an article in terms of attention and citation, and it's not my intent to go down that path. I simply want to let you know that you can get to this data, what you can do to view this kind of data, and make your own determinations about it. Provide some analysis around it. So simple feature, search, filter, citation report can reveal this type of information. And this is kind of what there's output and impact. And output is one thing, and you can get a nice idea of your, again, quote unquote, footprint based on sheer presence, sheer volume in certain areas. But impact as well can be very revealing. This is one way to do it. And I'll also do this live. You should be aware data is not held captive in Web of Science, and so when I perform an analysis, I can export that information. And an example here is simply filtering on all that is gold, or other gold, or hybrid type information, exporting it to a text file, pulling it into Excel, and this is discipline by discipline for a particular institution, and volume of articles in each discipline that are undergold or hybrid. So when you start to examine what your faculty is doing, where they're publishing, and again, identifying that footprint, this is one way to do it. I'll jump into InCites, benchmarking and analytics live as well, and recently we've added OA information and indicators into that resource also. And just a screenshot here, if you're not familiar with InCites, benchmarking and analytics, we essentially take data from Web of Science, and using the citation data in Web of Science, we can create average or expected rates of citation for essentially every article in the database based on its year of publication, its category, and its document type. Those three criteria allow for a creation of these benchmark average or expected citation rates. And then we measure that against the actual time cited for the paper. And so we can come up with metrics that at a glance communicate impact. And in this case, combine it with a view of OA status for these papers. And so a slide for you for reference, looking at an institution and where papers are published by that institution, the category normalized citation impact. And what this means is, in a nutshell, 1.82, this body of papers collectively have been cited at 1.82 times the average, beyond the average, 1.82 times. And I can combine it with these statuses. Again, slide for reference. I'll go live and show you more about InCites, benchmarking, and analytics. This slide is courtesy of my colleague, Amy Braden. Data is not held captive in InCites either. So you can export, bring into Excel if you so choose, and create things like this, where she looked at all neural institution, all neural consortium members, and the status of OA output for each, the varying statuses. And so if you're adept at Excel, there's a lot that you can do with the data that we're providing within Web of Science and InCites as well. And just a comment about some other things we're doing. So I talked about Web of Science, talked about InCites, benchmarking, and analytics, and I'll go live into those resources. But we'll also bring in some open access data into the journal Citation Reports. And this is in development, and at least our intent today is to stay or to stick to what we call publisher-mediated OA statuses, gold, DOAJ gold, hybrid gold kinds of things, and probably other gold as well. This is just, a bit of information much ahead of time, just so you're aware of what we're thinking about. We really have embraced open access and want to place it where it's most useful for everyone, and that includes the journal Citation Reports. So let me just go live here. And in Web of Science, if you're looking for information for your institution or another, the best way to go about doing that is through an organization-enhanced search. Organization-enhanced, let me go into the index here. Organization-enhanced search and organization-enhanced index is based on a manual curation of an institution and all of the variant names for that institution that publishing authors have used. And there are a lot of variants for, depending upon the institution. MIT comes to mind, where there are variants upon variants. So disambiguating institution names has always been a problem. This is how we handle it, organization enhanced. We work closely with institutions to make sure that we get the right set of variants for them, and when you're looking through the index here, you can click on this detail and always get the range of variants for any particular institution. that are associated with that official organization name that we include. And you just go back here. For the sake of this example, let's go with Colorado State. If I click on that, it adds it to the bottom here, and click on OK, it brings it back into my search. I'm going to just go with the last 10 years for this particular search, given that it's in the open access realm, and I really do want a more recent view of things. I click, I retrieve every paper associated with Colorado State University and all of its variants.
Sorry, can you go back to the year? How do you do that?
Oh, sure. So just under where the search box is, you'll see a time span. By default, it is likely set to all years, but you do have the opportunity to customize as well and choose a custom range and add the exact time span.
Thank you.
Sure. So search, pull in all of my items. You'll see this filter that I mentioned. So I've got over 29,000 items for Colorado State University. Over 8,000 of those are in an open access status, 8,600. And so, you know, a good chunk of content available in an OA format. So, again, which is somewhat hidden, I'm going to scroll down to view all options, open it up, and I have the designations, the status groupings for all of this content. DOA Gold, Other Gold, which is again hybrid, Bronze, Green Published, Green Accepted. So, as I mentioned in the slides, search, filter, analyze. And just for the sake of example, I'm going to stick with all open access content. Could be Green Accepted or Green Published or Other Gold, whichever you might want to do, but at least for this example. And I'll refine this. My set of results is now, in the last 10 years for Colorado State University, all that is in an open access status. And here's that feature I was mentioning, analyze results. So this is kind of the beginning of getting the big picture in terms of your open access footprint. So I analyze results. By default, typically, you will get a Web of Science category overview, where this information has been published, in which categories. And you can adjust that up to as many as 25, make it look like a bar graph. This is a nice presentation here, and know that this is exportable. So let's say someone internally has asked you for this kind of information. Do you know what our open access presence is? Where we've been publishing, in which disciplines, who we've collaborated with, what funders might be associated with that open access content. These are the steps to take: that organization enhanced search, the filter, and analyze results. You can download the graphic and know that here you get the data. So in this case, categories, number of records in each category. An article can be in more than one category, you should be aware of that. And what I wanted to show you was this nice download option. And so getting data out to Web of Science. And so by default, the subject category. But now, within a minute or so, you can get other data. A trend. You know, what does it look like for Colorado State University over a number of years? Now, I've done my search only on 10 years. In 2010, 550 articles in an OA status. In 2018, more than double that. So that's, you know, what they would want to see is this kind of embracing of open access internally as well. But let's look at...
Sorry, how did you get the trend again? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. So, within the graphic, you kind of have two options in Web of Science. There's this bar graph, and you change it right here. We have a tree map, and switch to a bar graph. what's more revealing and what most want to look at is where that information is being published. So just with a click, an analysis on journals. Where is that open access content appearing? In which publications? Now imagine a filter on other gold or hybrid-only publications and an analysis on journal title and being able to identify where those hybrid articles are being published. If you can identify where they're being published, you can also identify the fees that may be associated with those articles. One of our great users of Web of Science, Emory University, did a study on just that, using Web of Science data. They extracted all articles published in a hybrid or other gold status. They did some legwork behind the scenes as well, or not so behind the scenes. I think they used graduate students to identify the fees, the processing fees associated with each journal, match those fees up with all of the articles they've published using Web of Science data in that hybrid status, and basically came to understand how much they were paying for the hybrid type model for each journal. And then, as you can imagine, started to look at overall collection, subscription fees for each journal, matched up against those hybrid gold fees, and so helped them out a lot in just getting an understanding from a collection development perspective of how OA fit and what the costs were and those kinds of things. And so analysis by journal title, also funding agencies. When you start to get into things here, funders associated with open access content. And what I want to do, and I can do this quickly, this is kind of the point to get your gears turning and to get you thinking about things that you can do in Web of Science. Let me just jump into, there was another example. So organization enhanced search. Let's use Utah State University. I'm from Colorado, so I'm using some Western schools. I've kept this to 10 years and search. So what I'm going to do, so this is another typical kind of approach in defining an OA footprint for an institution, this time within a discipline. And this is an impact-focused kind of thing. And so let's look at environmental sciences. I'm going to refine. So I've got Utah State University environmental sciences publications over the last 10 years. And I will filter, sorry, that's the wrong one, filter on open access. Now every time sorry about that, let's go back there. Every time I filter, I'm creating a set of information. And what I can do, if I go into this advanced search here, I have my sets. And here's where I have Utah State environmental sciences, open access. I can, and this was actually all of Utah State in environmental sciences. So I'm going to do, just note the set numbers, 6 and 8. I'm going to do sorry, there we go. So what I have now, 2 sets. I've got Utah State Environmental Sciences Open Access and Utah State Environmental Sciences Subscribe or not open. If I look at the OA content, click Citation Report. And again, we have a lot of metrics here. You can view these kinds of things with an eye toward H-index. It's less biased when you're looking at papers in a category than when you're looking at an individual, especially when you've set a very specific time span. But average cites per item, 21.56 for the OA content. We go back to my search history, 21.56. This is non-OA content. Environmental Sciences, Utah State University, 14.51. That's a dramatic difference, really dramatic difference. And so these are the kinds of things that you can do when we talk about an OA footprint, and not just where OA material is being published, but the impact of it. These are the kind of things that you can do. And know that this information as well can be exported to an Excel file or to a text file. I can even choose the number of records below this information. And this is what I took a screenshot of, just so you got the key information. If you're so inclined, it gets very granular. We have article level information here if you really want to get into the weeds and look at citations to a paper over years. You can do that as well and export that information. And so hopefully just an idea of what you can do in Web of Science. The slides will be available and hopefully give you some reference for, again, these kinds of things that we're doing in terms of identifying where open access content has been published, disciplines, a look at funders associated with OA content, but also impact. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here and go into a development server to give you a preview of something. InCites benchmarking and analytics. Again, we take information from Web of Science. We normalize citations at the article level. So an article is compared only to other articles in the discipline, in the year of publication, and document type. So we can kind of fairly assess and compare information. So roots into, and this was not an InCites benchmarking and analytics training session. I simply want to display some things to you, and I've saved a couple of things that you can do. For example, and I stuck with Utah State because I used them last in Web of Science. Now open these up so you get a better view of them. This graphic here is displaying Utah State University Gold OA volume by discipline. In the top are ecology, environmental sciences, meteorology, etc. What I did over here was resort this based on category normalized citation impact, CNCI, as we call it. 2.25 lets me know that this grouping of articles on average in biochemistry and molecular biology has been cited 2.25 times the expected. And so on with each discipline. These are the top 5 disciplines. Now what this looks like, so you can see what we're doing in InCites benchmarking and analytics. I came into a research areas view, and I filtered by Utah State. And what we're introducing are these OA designations or statuses in InCites benchmarking and analytics. So not only can I look at my overall output and impact, I can begin to slice and dice this based on open access status and look at gold OA or green or other, and not just look at, what I did here was, again, sort by category normalized citation impact. So not just output and impact in sheer numbers such as this, but what we also have. So we have a lot of indicators, many indicators and metrics in InCites benchmarking and analytics. What I can do is associate with an institution just sheer numbers or sheer percentage of OA content in various designations or statuses. So I can look at an institution in many different ways. Let me just go back to what I've saved here. And show you how I can change things. So this is Utah State volume of gold. I can simply eliminate this. Update my results. I'm going to open this up. And change it over to all open access. All open access content. And I don't even need to change that or limit it. And in fact, let's look at all content. But what I can do, this is all output. And we are on a development server. This is a little risky. Let's see if that switches over there. I think we're good. So very quickly, I can add percentages. So big picture view in InCites benchmarking and analytics. For each discipline, for Utah State, I've got number of Web of Science documents. I've got the impact collectively for this body of work. But what I've also got here is information on how much of this is open access content. Percentage of gold, percentage of green, green accepted, percentage of green published, and so on. And so I can get a view, again, about 250 categories. So this is one thing that you can do in InCites benchmarking and analytics, and this is exportable as well. So data can be gotten out. And this is how those slides were created, using Web of Science, search, analyze results, filtering on open access, doing the same in InCites benchmarking and analytics, pulling data out, putting it into Excel. For many institutions, they're bringing it out of Web of Science so they can add additional data. Downloads, all of that kind of usage information that you might want to compare and match up against the OA status of things. And we're just about at the end. Any questions from anyone? Yeah?
So we're from a publishing standpoint, so I'm American Physiological Society. I think I saw publisher on there, but really if I want to look at where our output is coming from for all my, purposes, can we filter on publisher?
You can.
Journal only.
So one of the entry points here, so if we go into journals, what you will see is publish.
Now this is the beta one, or in development?
Yeah, this is in development.
So it's not, is the publisher there? And then-
Oh yeah, it would be there.
Okay, good.
So what you do is begin to type in the name and you'll find American Physiological Society or a competing publisher. Now for some publishers who haven't had 50 imprints over the years, this is an easy thing to do. If you're looking at a large publisher with a range of imprints, you have to click on each one. But yes, you can do it and can limit to publisher and begin to do the same kinds of analysis rather than on the university or on a publisher's body of work. My speaker information is on the website with an email address. So if you have any questions about this at all, we're happy to follow up and give you more in-depth. This is a broad swath that we cut across everything in a very short period of time. I didn't want to get too in-depth on anything, but I wanted to touch on a lot of different things to give you ideas. Hopefully you go back into Web of Science and start experimenting with things. And if you have questions, get in touch and we can provide some advice on how to go about things and point you to some presentations and recordings and do some training for you. Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Because I was, obviously we have a problem with the institution naming convention. You were talking, you had, the set of organization names.
Yes.
How did you go about that?
So it's
Complexly.
yeah, it's not easy. First step in doing that is basically to gather all of the variants that have been used by publishing authors. And all of those have been used. And so a lot of people view that list sometimes and want to clean it up. Like, oh, that's not right. But we don't do that because that would eliminate some paper somewhere that where an author used that. So we start there, and then we work with the institution and present those to them and ask for any variants that need to be added, really, so we can be comprehensive. And I can think of, we're working right now, again, I'm from Colorado, working with the Colorado institutions, which can be really complex. There's CU Boulder, there's ANSHIS, ANSHIS Medical Center, which has often been associated with Boulder, but it's also been associated with University of Colorado, Denver. So we're trying to sort these things out and better define them, and it takes some time and a little work, and it does require input on the part of the university. So that's how we do it, and again, it's manually curated, we maintain these, and we try to keep them updated. So a lot of work goes into it. Yeah?
How long does it take from the time an article is published to the time?
So that can vary. We have had long-standing, I don't want to say rules, but processes around the indexing of articles, and we try and be fair about it. A lot of it has to do with when a publisher gets us the data. But in addition to that, behavior around articles varies from discipline to discipline. So we do prioritize groupings of journals. As you can imagine, biochemistry, molecular biology, immunology, very fast-moving fields, as opposed to trying to stay within the sciences, maybe mathematics. And when we think about citation behavior and those kinds of things, and so we will prioritize indexing of publications. It's not as necessary these days as it was years ago. We have really good relationships with publishers, and by and large today, for the most part, we get data in a timely fashion, in digital format, and can turn it around. We still do index, quote unquote, many things. We index every cited reference. We're not scraping anything. We're going through the content of an article, cited reference by cited reference, indexing it, unifying cited references, in addition to just indexing the source article itself. So there's a lot going on there. We do try to prioritize. Length of time, I don't know. We have some people in the room who might want to jump in on that. I would say it can vary from a week or a couple of weeks. I don't think we'd like to go too much longer than that. Any comment?
That's typically, on average, about 5 to 10 working days from receipt of the item. And more of our items now are coming to us as online first, so early access content. I think we're about 8,000 journals working with early access content.
So it's pretty fast. That's Don Seckler on the product side of things. Also, Michael Habib is with us on the product side of Web of Science. So. Any other questions? No? Thanks again. And I think, at least for me, the key behind doing this was getting in touch with you after. If you're a Web of Science user or an InCites user, please contact me and we can help you get the ball rolling with this